Dr. Vexnari adjusted the neural interface crown on her elongated skull, feeling the familiar tingle as the device synchronized with her thoughts. The observation dome stretched above her like a crystalline shell, offering a perfect view of the blue-green world spinning slowly below. 3 rings of research stations orbited the planet called Earth, their sleek forms hidden behind advanced cloaking technology that rendered them invisible to the primitive sensors of the species they studied. Beginning observation cycle 479, she spoke into the recording device, her voice carrying the melodic tones common to her species. Subject planet designation Terra 3, local species designation humans. Research objective, cultural and behavioral analysis for the Galactic Xenological Archive. Vexnari had spent the last 2 standard cycles studying the inhabitants of this small world, and she found them endlessly fascinating. The humans were such a contradiction. They possessed basic space travel capabilities, having reached their own moon and sent primitive probes to nearby worlds, yet they seemed entirely unaware of the vast galactic community that surrounded them. It was like watching children play in a sandbox, completely oblivious to the sprawling city beyond their small playground. The research station hummed with quiet activity around her. Her team of 12 specialists worked at their stations, each monitoring different aspects of human civilization. Dr. Kethmori handled technological assessment, while research associate Vin Para focused on social structures. They were part of the hegemony's Peaceful Contact Initiative, tasked with studying developing species to determine their readiness for first contact. "Vexnari," called Kethmori from his station. "I'm seeing interesting developments in their communication networks. They've created something they call the Internet that connects billions of their devices worldwide." "Impressive for their technological level," Vexnari replied, making notes on her datapad. "Any signs of unified planetary governance?" None. They remain divided into nearly 200 separate political entities, many of which appear to be in constant conflict with each other. This was typical for pre-contact species. The hegemony had observed thousands of worlds over the millennia, and the pattern was always similar. Young civilizations struggled with unity, often spending centuries or even millennia fighting among themselves before achieving the social stability necessary for peaceful integration into galactic society. Vexnari pulled up the holographic display showing Earth's surface. The planet was beautiful in its chaotic diversity. Unlike the carefully planned cities of hegemony worlds, human settlements sprawled across the landscape in seemingly random patterns. They built along coastlines, in valleys, even in harsh deserts and frozen polar regions. It showed a remarkable adaptability, though their construction methods appeared crude by galactic standards. "Research Associate Vin Para," Vexnari called. "What's your assessment of their social cohesion?" The young researcher looked up from her console, her large eyes reflecting the blue light of her screens. "Fascinating, Doctor. They maintain strong tribal bonds within small groups, but these groups often conflict with other tribes of the same species. They identify themselves by geographic region, religious belief, skin pigmentation, and even by which organized sporting groups they support." "Sporting groups?" "They engage in ritualized physical competitions with complex rules. Millions of individuals will gather to watch these events, showing intense emotional investment in the outcomes." Vexnari found this intriguing. Most hegemony species had evolved past such primitive competitive displays, but there was something charming about the humans' passionate engagement with their games. It suggested a species with strong emotional capacity and social bonding instincts. The observation session continued through the day cycle. Vexnari monitored human cities, watching the millions of tiny figures moving through their daily routines. They traveled in primitive vehicles that burned fossil fuels, worked in massive structures that seemed inefficient by galactic standards, and spent significant portions of their time in activities that appeared to serve no practical purpose beyond personal enjoyment. "Doctor," interrupted communications specialist Larthek, "I've been monitoring their entertainment broadcasts. They seem to spend enormous amounts of time and resources creating fictional stories." "What kind of stories?" "All varieties: adventures, romance, comedy, drama. But I've noticed an unusual pattern. A significant percentage of their fiction involves conflict, violence, and warfare. They seem almost obsessed with creating stories about fighting." Vexenari frowned. This was concerning. The hegemony had learned through long experience that species with violent tendencies rarely transitioned well to galactic society. Such species either destroyed themselves before achieving interstellar travel or became ongoing problems requiring intervention. "Are these stories based on historical events?" she asked. "Some appear to be, but many are purely fictional. They create elaborate fantasy scenarios involving combat between their own species, conflict with imaginary alien species, and even warfare in possible future timelines." "Troubling. Make detailed notes. The Cultural Assessment Board will want to review this data carefully." As the observation period continued, more concerning patterns emerged. The humans maintained vast military organizations despite their primitive technology. Nations that showed no signs of external threats kept enormous armies equipped with increasingly sophisticated weapons. Some of these weapons were powerful enough to destroy their entire civilization multiple times over. Yet paradoxically, Vexenari also observed behaviors that suggested a species capable of great compassion. Humans regularly helped strangers in distress, created complex systems to care for their elderly and sick, and even showed concern for other species on their planet. They had developed art, music, and literature that demonstrated sophisticated emotional depth. "They're a puzzle," she confided to her research journal that evening. "I've studied 47 pre-contact species, and I've never encountered such contradictions. They show capacity for both remarkable cruelty and extraordinary kindness, often within the same individual." The following day brought new discoveries. Vin Para had focused her observations on human families, studying their child-rearing practices. What she found challenged everything the team thought they knew about human nature. "Doctor, you need to see this," Vin Para called excitedly. "I've been observing human parents with their offspring." The holographic display showed a human family in their dwelling. 2 adults and 3 smaller humans, presumably offspring in various stages of development. Vexenari watched as the adult humans displayed complex nurturing behaviors, providing food, shelter, education, and emotional support to their young. "The dedication is remarkable," Vin Para explained. "Human parents invest enormous time and resources in their offspring. They protect them fiercely and make significant personal sacrifices to ensure their survival and development." "This is standard behavior for most species," Vexenari replied, though she continued watching with interest. "Yes, but look at this." Vin Para changed the display to show a different scene. A human child had fallen and injured itself while playing. Both parents rushed to provide aid, showing genuine distress at their offspring's pain. Still normal, protective behavior. "But doctor, watch what happens next." The display shifted to show the same human family encountering strangers. Another human family was in distress, their vehicle disabled on a remote roadway. Without hesitation, the family they had been observing stopped to provide assistance, even though it meant significant delay and inconvenience for their own journey. "They extend their protective instincts beyond their immediate offspring," Vin Para said. "I've documented hundreds of examples. Humans regularly risk themselves to help strangers, even strangers from different tribal groups." This was unusual. Most species demonstrated strong protective instincts toward their own offspring and immediate social groups, but extending such behavior to unrelated individuals suggested something different about human psychology. Keth Mori joined their discussion, adding his own observations. I've been studying their technological development patterns. They share information freely across tribal boundaries. Their scientific advances are rapidly distributed to their entire species, regardless of political affiliations. How is that possible with their fragmented political structure? Vexnari asked. They've created something they call academic institutions that exist somewhat independently of political control. Knowledge flows through these institutions across tribal lines. A discovery made in one region quickly spreads throughout their civilization. Vexnari was beginning to see a pattern that troubled her. The humans demonstrated an unusual combination of competitive aggression and cooperative sharing. They fought intensely over resources and territory, yet freely shared the knowledge that would help their competitors become more dangerous. Larthek, she called to the communications specialist, show me more of their fictional stories, particularly the ones involving violence. The display filled with scenes from human entertainment, warriors fighting monsters, soldiers defending their homelands, heroes protecting innocent civilians from various threats. But as Vexnari studied the stories more carefully, she noticed something that made her neural interface crown tingle with unease. These stories aren't celebrating violence for its own sake, she realized aloud. They're celebrating the use of violence to protect others. I don't understand the distinction, Keth Mori said. Look at the narrative structures. The protagonists aren't seeking conquest or domination. They're using force to defend their families, their communities, their species. The violence is portrayed as necessary to protect something precious. Vinpara leaned closer to examine the data. You're right, Doctor. In every story, the hero is responding to a threat. They're not the aggressors. A chill ran through Vexnari's thoughts. She had studied enough galactic history to know about predator species. True predators didn't hunt for sport or entertainment. They hunted to protect their territory, their resources, their offspring. They were dangerous, not because they enjoyed violence, but because they were willing to use overwhelming force when something they valued was threatened. Bring up their military histories, she commanded. Focus on their largest conflicts. The display shifted to show human warfare across their history. Battle after battle, war after war, spanning thousands of years. But as the team studied the patterns, a disturbing picture emerged. Look at this, Keth Mori pointed out. In almost every major conflict, the side that ultimately prevailed was defending against aggression rather than initiating it. That can't be right, Vinpara protested. Aggressors typically have advantages in preparation and initiative. But it's consistent across their history. When humans perceive themselves as protecting something important, they demonstrate remarkable persistence and innovation. Defending groups regularly defeat larger, better-equipped attackers. Vexnari felt her breathing chambers constrict. Show me their most recent global conflict. The display filled with scenes from what humans called their Second World War. Millions of humans engaged in massive, coordinated violence across multiple continents and oceans. The scale was staggering, involving nearly every political entity on their planet. The alliance that prevailed was responding to aggressive expansion by other powers, Keth Mori reported. When the aggressive powers attacked civilian populations, the defending alliance demonstrated unprecedented cooperation and resource mobilization. How unprecedented! They transformed their entire civilization into a military apparatus within a few years. Peaceful production facilities were converted to weapons manufacturing. Scientific research was redirected toward military applications. Entire populations accepted reduced living standards to support the war effort. Vexnari studied the data, feeling growing unease. And after the conflict ended? They dismantled the war apparatus and resumed peaceful activities. Most of the military technologies were converted to civilian applications. They even provided aid to rebuild the societies of their former enemies. This pattern was becoming clear, and it terrified her. Humans weren't naturally violent. They were naturally protective. But when something triggered their protective instincts, they became something else entirely. Something focused and relentless and utterly committed to neutralizing threats. "Larthek," she said quietly, "access their cultural archives. Look for stories about how they react to threats to their offspring." The communications specialist worked quickly, pulling data from human literature, folklore, and historical records. Story after story appeared on the display. Mothers lifting impossible weights to save trapped children. Fathers fighting off dangerous predators with improvised weapons. Communities organizing to rescue lost youngsters. "There's a consistent theme," Larthek reported. "When their offspring are threatened, humans display strength, intelligence, and determination far beyond their normal capabilities. Show me their responses to threats to their entire species." The display shifted again. Humans facing natural disasters, disease outbreaks, environmental challenges. In each case, they demonstrated remarkable adaptability and persistence. When faced with extinction-level threats, they innovated solutions, organized massive cooperative efforts, and maintained hope even in apparently hopeless situations. Vexnari's hands trembled as she reached for her personal communicator. She needed to contact the Hegemony Council immediately. Her research team had made a terrible discovery. "Doctor?" Vinpera asked. "What's wrong?" "We've made an error in our initial classification," Vexnari replied, her voice strained. "Humans aren't a primitive species struggling with internal conflicts. They're a predator species in their rest state." "I don't understand." "Most predators are dangerous when hunting or defending territory. But humans, they're only truly dangerous when they're protecting something they love. And since they extend their protective instincts to their entire species." The implications hung in the air like toxic gas. The hegemony had been observing humans for years, studying them, evaluating them for potential contact, but they had fundamentally misunderstood what they were looking at. "If they perceive the hegemony as a threat to their species," Kethmori said slowly, "they won't respond as a primitive civilization seeking peaceful contact. They'll respond as a predator species defending its territory and offspring," Vexnari confirmed, "and based on their historical patterns, they won't stop until the threat is completely neutralized." She activated her communicator with shaking fingers. The Hegemony Council needed to know what they had discovered orbiting this small blue world. They weren't studying a potential new member of galactic civilization. They were studying the most dangerous predator in the galaxy. The emergency session convened in the main conference chamber of Research Station Alpha. Dr. Vexnari stood before a holographic projection showing 12 members of the Hegemony Science Council, their various alien forms flickering slightly due to the vast distance the communications had to travel. Each council member represented a different species within the hegemony, and their combined experience spanned thousands of years of peaceful first contact protocols. "Dr. Vexnari," spoke Council Leader Morthax, his crystalline form pulsing with concern, "your preliminary report is highly unusual. Please present your evidence for reclassifying humans as a predator species." Vexnari activated her presentation, showing the compiled data her team had gathered over the past several days. "Council members, our initial assessment classified humans as a fragmented, primitive species with aggressive tendencies but limited threat potential. However, deeper analysis reveals that we fundamentally misunderstood their behavioral patterns." The display showed human military history, focusing on defensive wars where smaller forces had defeated larger aggressors. When humans perceive threats to their offspring, communities, or species, they demonstrate capabilities far beyond their apparent technological limitations. Council member Velthari, a tall insectoid being, leaned forward in her projection. "All protective species show enhanced capabilities when defending offspring. This is not unique to humans." "Respectfully, Council member, The human response goes far beyond standard protective behavior. Observe this data. Vexnari highlighted a series of graphs showing human technological advancement during wartime. During periods of existential threat, their innovation rate increases by factors of 10 to 20. They develop technologies in months that would normally take decades. She showed examples from their global conflicts. Radar technology, jet propulsion, nuclear energy, advanced computing systems, space rockets, all developed under extreme time pressure when their survival was at stake. Furthermore, Vexnari continued, they demonstrate unprecedented cooperation across tribal boundaries when facing species-level threats. Groups that have been in conflict for centuries will instantly unite against external dangers. Council Leader Morthax studied the data carefully. Your evidence suggests unusual adaptability, but many species show increased cooperation during crises. What makes humans particularly dangerous? Dr. Kethamori stepped forward with permission to speak. Council members, may I present additional findings regarding human psychology? The display shifted to show brain scans and behavioral analyses. Humans possess a unique neurological structure that allows them to temporarily suppress individual survival instincts when protecting others. They can literally choose death over failure to protect what they value. Impossible, declared Council Member Zex-kun, a large aquatic being. No species evolves suicidal tendencies. It contradicts basic survival principles. Not suicidal, Council Member, sacrificial. When they determine that their death will better protect their group, they can overcome every biological survival mechanism. Their literature and history are filled with examples of individuals choosing certain death to save others. Vexnari added more evidence. They call these individuals heroes, and their entire culture celebrates such behavior. This suggests that the capability for ultimate sacrifice is not rare among humans. It's considered the highest virtue. The council members exchanged concerned communications through their private channels. Council Leader Morthax spoke for the group. Dr. Vexnari, even accepting your analysis, humans remain a pre-contact species with primitive technology. Surely they pose no immediate threat to the hegemony. That assumption may be our gravest error, Council Leader. Research Associate Vin Para has discovered something troubling about human technological development patterns. Vin Para stepped forward nervously. Speaking to the Science Council was an honor few young researchers experienced. Council members, humans don't follow standard technological progression patterns. Most species develop technologies sequentially, first mastering basic principles, then advancing to more complex applications. She activated a new display showing human scientific achievements. Humans often develop advanced technologies before fully understanding the underlying principles. They achieve functional results through experimentation and intuition, then work backward to understand the theory. This is highly inefficient, noted Council Member Velthari. Yes, but it also means they can achieve breakthrough capabilities very quickly when motivated. More importantly, it means our standard threat assessment models don't apply to them. We cannot predict their technological capabilities based on their current development level. Council Leader Morthax was beginning to look disturbed. Are you suggesting that humans could rapidly develop spacefaring military capabilities? We're suggesting something more concerning than that, Vexnari replied grimly. Show them the weapons data, Kethmori. The display filled with images of human nuclear weapons. 78 years after discovering atomic structure, humans had weapons capable of destroying their entire civilization. They currently maintain approximately 14,000 nuclear warheads with delivery systems capable of reaching any target on their planet within 30 minutes. This proves they're too dangerous for contact, Council Member Zex-kun declared. Species that develop extinction-level weapons so quickly should be quarantined until they achieve emotional maturity. That's exactly what we thought initially, Vexnari said. But consider this. They've possessed these weapons for over 70 years and haven't used them to destroy each other. Despite numerous conflicts and tensions, they've shown remarkable restraint. "How is that possible with such a violent species?" asked Velthari. "Because they're not violent for the sake of violence. They're protective. The same instinct that makes them dangerous when threatened also makes them careful with dangerous weapons. They understand that using such weapons could threaten their own offspring and species." Communications specialist Larthek requested permission to speak. "Council members, there's another aspect to consider. Humans have begun developing technologies that could detect our observation stations." This caused immediate alarm among the council members. "Explain," commanded Morthax. "Their space-based telescopes are becoming increasingly sophisticated. Within a few decades, they may be capable of detecting our cloaked stations. More concerning, they've begun theoretical work on the same cloaking technologies we use." "Impossible. Cloaking technology requires understanding of subquantum field manipulation." Yet their theoretical physicists have published papers describing the mathematical frameworks necessary for such technology. They call it dark energy manipulation and gravitational lensing control. Their terminology is different, but the underlying concepts are identical to our cloaking systems. Vexnari felt the atmosphere in the conference chamber growing tense. "Council members, we need to address an immediate problem. Our continued observation of humans may itself trigger the protective response we fear." "How so?" "If they detect our presence, they'll perceive us as a potential threat to their species. Based on their historical patterns, this will unite their entire civilization and trigger an unprecedented technological advancement program focused on space-based defense capabilities." The council fell silent as they considered the implications. Finally, Council Leader Morthax spoke. "Dr. Vexnari, you're suggesting that our standard observation protocols may have placed us in danger." "Potentially extreme danger, Council Leader. If humans develop spacefaring capabilities while perceiving us as threats, they won't attempt peaceful contact. They'll attempt to neutralize what they see as an existential threat to their species." Council Member Velthari asked the obvious question. "And what would such an attempt look like, given human capabilities?" Vexnari exchanged glances with her team. They had spent considerable time analyzing this possibility, and their conclusions were terrifying. "Based on their historical patterns," she began carefully, "humans would likely develop multiple independent approaches simultaneously. They'd prioritize speed over safety, accepting enormous risks to deploy defensive capabilities as quickly as possible." She activated a new display showing human industrial capacity. "They possess the largest manufacturing base we've recorded for a pre-contact species. During their global conflicts, they demonstrated the ability to retool their entire industrial civilization for war production within 2 years. Kethmori added technical details. "Their nuclear technology could be adapted for space propulsion systems. Their computer networks could coordinate global defense programs. Their satellite systems could be modified for space-based weapons platforms." "Timeline?" asked Morthax. "If they perceived an immediate threat and committed their entire civilization to developing space-based defense capabilities, possibly 5 to 10 years for basic systems, 15 to 20 years for sophisticated, coordinated defense networks." The silence that followed was profound. The hegemony had existed for millennia by carefully managing contact with developing species. They approached only peaceful civilizations and only after extensive observation confirmed that contact would be safe for both sides. They had never encountered a situation where their observation activities themselves might trigger a hostile response. "There's something else," Vinpara said quietly. "Something we discovered about human pack behavior that's deeply concerning." "Continue," Morthax commanded. "When humans perceive threats to their group, they don't just fight until the immediate danger passes. They fight until they're absolutely certain the threat can never return. They study their enemies, learn their weaknesses, and then eliminate them completely. She showed historical examples. Humans hunting dangerous predators to extinction, completely destroying enemy military capabilities during wars, developing vaccines that permanently eliminated disease threats. They don't accept temporary victories. When something threatens their offspring or species, they pursue total solutions. They think in generational timescales. They want to ensure that their children and their children's children will never face the same threat again. The implications hit the Council like a physical blow. If humans perceived the hegemony as threatening their species, they wouldn't be content with just defending Earth. They would seek to eliminate the hegemony entirely, seeing it as the only way to ensure permanent safety for humanity. Council Leader, Vexnari said formally, my team requests immediate reassignment away from the Sol system. We believe our continued presence here represents an unacceptable risk. Denied, Morthax replied immediately. If your assessment is correct, abandoning observation could be interpreted as hostile withdrawal. We need to maintain normal observation protocols while the Council determines how to proceed. The conference continued for several more hours, but Vexnari found herself distracted by a growing sense of unease. Something about their situation felt fundamentally unstable, like a chemical reaction approaching critical mass. After the council session ended, her team gathered in the research station's common area. They sat in uncomfortable silence, each processing the implications of what they had discovered. Do you think they believed us? Asked Vinpara. I think they understood the data, Vexnari replied. Whether they're willing to accept the conclusions is another matter. The hegemony has never encountered a situation like this. Larthek looked up from his communication console. Dr. Vexnari, I'm detecting unusual activity from Earth. What kind of activity? Multiple governments are holding emergency sessions. Their military organizations have increased alert levels. Several space agencies have announced accelerated launch schedules. Vexnari felt her blood cool. Are they responding to something specific? I'm not certain. Their public communications mention unidentified objects detected near Earth orbit, but the details are classified. The research team exchanged alarmed glances. Could they have detected us? Asked Kethmori. Our cloaking technology should be completely invisible to their sensors, Larthek replied, but his voice carried uncertainty. Vexnari moved quickly to the main observation console. Show me current human space activities. The display revealed increased satellite launches, expanded telescope observations, and what appeared to be construction of new space-based facilities. Most concerning, several powerful radio telescopes were now focused on the exact regions where the hegemony research stations were located. They know something, she said quietly. They may not know exactly what, but they know something is out here. The communication console chimed with an incoming priority message from the Science Council. Council leader Morthax appeared in hologram form. Dr. Vexnari, new intelligence suggests that humans may have detected energy signatures from your research stations. You are ordered to maintain complete observation silence and prepare for possible emergency extraction. Council leader, if we suddenly disappear, won't that confirm their suspicions about alien presence? Perhaps. But if they've already detected us, continued presence may trigger exactly the response you predicted. The Council is convening an emergency session to determine how to proceed. The hologram flickered and disappeared, leaving Vexnari's team alone with their growing fear. Through the observation dome, Earth continued its serene rotation below them, beautiful and apparently peaceful. But now Vexnari knew what she was really looking at. Not a primitive world inhabited by a simple species, but the den of sleeping predators. And those predators were beginning to wake up. Dr. Vexnari hadn't slept in 3 cycles. None of her team had. They maintained their observation posts around the clock, watching Earth with growing dread as human activity accelerated far beyond anything they had previously recorded. What had started as routine surveillance had transformed into something that felt like watching a sleeping giant slowly opening its eyes. "Doctor," called Larthek urgently. "You need to see this immediately." Vexnari rushed to the communications station where multiple screens displayed human broadcast networks. The images showed scenes from across Earth, massive rocket assemblies being constructed in record time, military facilities operating at maximum capacity, and most disturbing of all, crowds of humans gathering in every major city on the planet. "They're not panicking," Larthek reported, his voice filled with disbelief. "Look at their behavior patterns." Vexnari studied the crowds. Despite the obvious urgency of global mobilization happening around them, the humans moved with purpose rather than chaos. Children continued attending schools, businesses remained open, and public transportation operated normally. It was as if the entire species had simultaneously shifted into a heightened state of awareness without losing their organizational structure. "This is impossible," whispered Vinpara from her station. "How can an entire planetary population coordinate this quickly without central command?" "Because they don't need central command," Vexnari realized with growing horror. "They're operating on instinct now. Every human understands what needs to be done without being told." Research associate Keth Mori looked up from his tactical analysis console. "Doctor, I've been tracking their space launch activities. In the past 72 hours, they've launched more rockets than in the previous 12 months combined." "What kind of payloads?" "That's what's concerning. The launches are using entirely new rocket designs that weren't in existence a week ago. They're deploying something into orbit, but I can't determine what." Vexnari activated the long-range scanners, focusing on Earth's orbital space. What she saw made her breathing chambers constrict. Hundreds of new objects were appearing in Earth orbit, far too many to be explained by the rocket launches they had observed. "They're building something," she said quietly. "But how are they deploying so many objects so quickly?" "Doctor," interrupted Larthek, "I'm intercepting a transmission that you need to hear." The speakers crackled with human communication. A calm, professional voice spoke in their primary language. "This is Houston Control to all stations. Project Aegis is now fully operational. All personnel report to designated coordinates. Remember, we have one chance to get this right." "Project Aegis?" Vexnari asked. "I've been monitoring their communications for references," Larthek replied. "It appears to be a defense initiative that was activated 3 days ago. But, Doctor, according to my analysis of their technological capabilities, what they're describing shouldn't be possible." "Show me." The display filled with intercepted technical communications. Engineering specifications for space-based platforms, coordination protocols for global missile defense networks, and deployment schedules for technologies that seemed decades beyond human capabilities. These systems describe gravitational pulse generators, quantum entanglement communication arrays, and directed energy weapons, Kethmori reported. All technologies that they shouldn't be able to build for at least another century. Vexnari felt a chill that went beyond fear into pure terror, unless they've been working on these technologies in secret for decades. "But our observations showed no evidence of advanced weapons research," protested Vinpara. "Our observations focused on their public activities and open scientific research," Vexnari replied grimly. "We never looked for hidden research programs because we assumed they were too primitive for such sophisticated deception." The communication console erupted with alerts as scanning systems detected massive energy signatures from Earth. Through the observation dome, they could see new points of light appearing around the planet like a constellation forming in real time. "Doctor," Kethmori called out, "I'm reading energy patterns that match our own deflector shield technology." "That's impossible." "Confirmed impossible, but the readings are undeniable. Somehow humans have deployed planetary defense shields using technology that should be beyond their capabilities." Vexnari stared at the data, her mind racing through the implications. They knew They've known about us for much longer than we realized. How could they hide such advanced research from our observations? Because we were looking at a pre-contact species that needed protection from the dangers of space, she said bitterly. We never considered that we might be looking at a species that was already preparing to defend itself against those dangers. The main communication console chimed with an incoming transmission, but this wasn't from the Hegemony Council. The signal was originating from Earth. "Attention unknown vessels currently observing our solar system," came a clear, calm human voice. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen, Supreme Commander of Earth Defense Forces. We know you're there, and we know you've been watching us. We're prepared to discuss this situation, but first you need to understand something important about humans." The research teams stared at each other in shock. Humans had not only detected their presence, but were attempting direct communication. "We don't know your intentions," Admiral Chen continued, "but we've studied your observation patterns for the past 18 months. You've been learning about us, so it's only fair that we share some information about what you've discovered." The transmission paused, and Vexnari realized that every alarm system on the research station was activating. Their scanners were detecting energy signatures all around them. "You've been observing human behavior, trying to determine what kind of species we are. You've seen our conflicts, our divisions, our apparent limitations. But you may have missed the most important thing about humans. We're at our most dangerous when someone threatens our children." The energy signatures were getting stronger. Vexnari looked at her tactical display and felt her organs freeze with terror. Human ships were materializing all around the research stations, appearing as if from empty space. "How?" whispered Kethmori. "How do they have cloaking technology?" "And every government on Earth received your signal," Admiral Chen continued calmly. "Every leader, every military organization, every parent on this planet now knows that unknown aliens have been secretly watching their families for years. You've made 8 billion humans very, very protective." Through the observation dome, Vexnari could see sleek human vessels surrounding not just their station, but all 3 research stations in Earth orbit. The ships were unlike anything in their technological assessments. Smooth, efficient designs that radiated power far beyond what pre-contact species should possess. "Your ships are impressive," the Admiral acknowledged. "But you should understand that humans have been preparing for this possibility since we first looked up at the stars. We've been asking ourselves, what if someone out there doesn't have peaceful intentions toward Earth?" The human ships weren't threatening them, Vexnari realized. They were simply there, watching, waiting, demonstrating capability without aggression. "We've spent 70 years developing technologies in secret, hidden from casual observation. Nuclear power gave us the energy sources. Computer networks gave us coordination capabilities. Space exploration gave us the engineering knowledge. But most importantly, the possibility that someone might threaten our children gave us motivation." Admiral Chen's voice remained perfectly calm, but Vexnari could detect the underlying steel in her words. "We don't know if you're peaceful explorers or potential threats. But we've decided that's not really the question we should be asking. The question is, are you prepared to deal with a species that spent its entire evolutionary history as persistence hunters?" The tactical displays were showing impossible readings. The human ships weren't just surrounding the research stations, they were demonstrating technologies that rivaled hegemony capabilities. Gravity manipulation, energy shields, and what appeared to be faster-than-light communication systems. "You see, humans don't just hunt prey by being stronger or faster," Admiral Chen explained. "We hunt by being smarter, more persistent, and absolutely committed to protecting our pack. When something threatens our children, we don't fight until we win. We fight until we're absolutely certain the threat can never return." Vexnari activated her emergency communicator to contact the Hegemony Council, but found that all communications were being blocked. The humans had somehow jammed their quantum entanglement communication systems. "We know you're trying to contact your superiors," the Admiral said, apparently aware of their every action. "We'll allow that communication in a moment, but first, we want them to understand what kind of species you've been studying." The human ships began transmitting data directly to the research stations. Technical specifications, historical records, and scientific capabilities far beyond anything the hegemony had observed. "This is our real technological level," Admiral Chen explained. "Quantum computers, antimatter power generation, gravitational manipulation, and yes, faster-than-light travel. We've had interstellar capability for 15 years. 15 years? Vexnari gasped. "We've known about galactic civilization for quite some time. We've been observing you just as you've been observing us. The difference is that we're very good at staying hidden when we want to." The data transmission revealed the true scope of human advancement. Not a primitive species struggling with basic space travel, but an advanced civilization that had deliberately concealed its capabilities while secretly exploring nearby star systems. "We found your observation posts around other developing worlds," Admiral Chen continued. "We studied your technology, your social structures, your expansion patterns. We wanted to understand what kind of neighbors we might have." More data flowed into their systems. Records of human exploration ships visiting hegemony worlds, detailed analysis of hegemony military capabilities, and most terrifying of all, strategic assessments of how to neutralize hegemony forces if they proved hostile. "We've spent years preparing for this conversation," the Admiral said. "We hoped you'd eventually make peaceful contact. We're disappointed that you chose secret observation instead." The communication system finally unlocked and immediately began receiving urgent messages from the Hegemony Council. Vexnari activated the response channel with trembling hands. "Council Leader Morthax," she reported, "we have a situation that goes far beyond our initial assessment." The holographic projection of the council leader appeared, but his crystalline form was already showing signs of stress. "Dr. Vexnari, we're receiving data transmissions from your location that suggest impossible technological capabilities." Council Leader, "Humans have been aware of our presence for an extended period. They've been conducting their own covert observations of hegemony space. They're not a pre-contact species." "That's impossible. Our stealth technology is ineffective against human sensors," Vexnari interrupted. "Council Leader, they've been watching us while we watch them, and they've been preparing for potential conflict for decades." Admiral Chen's voice returned to the communication channel. "Council Leader Morthax, my species extends greetings to the hegemony. We're honored to finally speak directly." The council leader's hologram flickered with shock. "You can access our communication systems? We can access any technology that we've had years to study and analyze, but please don't interpret that as a threat. We're simply demonstrating that humans are not the primitive species your researchers believed us to be." "What do you want from us?" Morthax asked. "The same thing any parent wants. Assurance that our children will be safe. We need to know that the hegemony doesn't represent a threat to human survival." The Admiral paused, and when she continued, her voice carried a weight that made Vexnari's neural interface crown tingle with fear. "You see, Council Leader, you've discovered something that most species never learn about humans. We're not actually dangerous because we're aggressive or warlike. We're dangerous because when someone threatens our young, we become something that doesn't exist anywhere else in the galaxy." "And what is that?" Morthax asked. "A species that will sacrifice everything, risk everything, and destroy everything necessary to protect our children. We become persistence hunters on a galactic scale. And persistence hunters don't stop until the threat is completely eliminated." The human ships around the research stations powered up their weapons systems, not threatening, just demonstrating, showing that they possessed firepower that could sterilize solar systems. But here's what makes humans different from every other predator in the galaxy, Admiral Chen continued. We don't want to hunt you. We don't want to fight you. We'd much rather be your friends, your allies, your trading partners. We'd love to learn from your sciences, share our arts, explore the galaxy together. The weapons powered down again. All we need is your word that the hegemony will never threaten human children. Give us that assurance, and humans will be the most loyal friends you've ever had. We'll help you explore new worlds, defend against threats, and build a better galaxy together. The silence that followed stretched for long moments. Finally, Council Leader Morthax spoke. Admiral Chen, the hegemony has existed for millennia by maintaining peace between species. We have never threatened developing civilizations. Then we have no conflict, the Admiral replied warmly. Welcome to the galaxy, humanity. We look forward to working with our new neighbors. As Vexenari watched the human ships begin withdrawing to respectful distances, she finally understood what her research had truly discovered. Humans weren't a predator species because they were violent. They were predators because they had evolved the most dangerous trait in the universe, the willingness to sacrifice themselves completely for something they loved more than their own lives. And they loved their children more than anything else in existence. The hegemony had just made first contact with a species that would burn down the galaxy to protect a single human child. But fortunately for everyone, humans were also a species that would die to protect a single alien child, once that alien child became part of their pack. Vexenari looked down at Earth, still beautiful and blue beneath them, and realized that the galaxy had just become a much safer place, because now it had protectors who would never, ever give up.